Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we have a new Eventuri project car to show you, and this is the Z4 M40i. The reason that we bought this car is to develop the air intake system for it. We do have a Supra on order, but we're not sure when that's going to turn up. From a quick look at both the cars, they do have the same airbox, so it will give us a head start on the Supra development. So while we've got the car here, it'd be rude not to look it over, go for a test drive and give you our initial verdicts. Initially, I'm really happy with the styling of this car. I think it actually looks very good, probably one of the best looking Z4s they've made. It almost looks like a mini 8 Series to me, which is no bad thing, but the lines are a bit cleaner. Starting from the front, working our way back, the front grills are very different to what we've seen. They're very close to the design they had on the concept, and it also has the active vents which open up at certain speeds to help with the aerodynamics. The front bumper itself is pretty aggressive for a non-M car. It's got the same kind of iconic headlights that they're doing on a lot of the modern day BMWs. Classic Z4 styling. The front end is quite long, the rear end is quite short, so that kind of classic two-seater Sportster look. The brakes are actually pretty big, and I was quite surprised at that. I drove the Supra at Thruxton on test drive day, and I was really impressed with the brakes, and I wasn't sure whether Z4 had the same brakes, but it does. Multi-piston, big discs. Surprised they're not vented, but they work pretty well on the track on the Supra at least. This car's come with Pilot Super Sports on the stock wheels, and they're actually a pretty nice design. It's kind of an evolution of the wheels that were on the F13 M6. I like the side grille as well. There's a nice bit of detailing on the styling here, just adds that little bit of aggressiveness to the car. In general, the side profile actually looks pretty good. I'm liking the way the line flows from the front to the back on that high angle, and then it basically ends up being part of the line for the rear lights. And the rear end of the car is probably my favorite part of the car. It does look a bit like a mini 8 Series. It doesn't look as good as the concept. The concept was absolutely amazing, but it's actually translated really well into a road going car. The exhaust will show you the sounds that makes later on, but it looks pretty sporty. I think the proportions are just right on the back, and the rear diffuser for a stock one is actually pretty cool. While we're here, we can take a quick look at the interior. So I've not noticed this on a BMW before, but they've got lots of kind of six-sided shapes everywhere. So on the vents, even on the slider for the phone cubby, the button over here that opens up the middle channel, the air vents there, even like the shape of the dash. The dash is actually pretty cool. So it's an evolution of the digital dash we've got in the F90 M5, but it's even more advanced than that, and the resolution on the screen is vastly improved as well compared to the older one. Steering wheel same as the F90 M5. Seats are actually pretty cool, and probably could do with a bit more support, but I think this is a GT car, so they've probably designed a bit more for comfort than supportiveness. If we go over to the front, we can have a quick look at the engine. So this car uses the B58 engine that's in the M140i, M240i, and also the new Supra, and that's mated to a 8-speed ZF gearbox, which BMW are using in a lot of their cars now. It's a really good gearbox in this car. Shifts are really quick, downshifts are quick. It's actually really hard to tell the difference between this and a DCT gearbox. So this is the B58. It's charge cooled, and it also has strut bars going across from here. What was interesting was on the Supra, it had the channel for the strut bars, but no strut bars. So it means the airbox is going to be either exactly the same or very similar. So it should give us a good head start into the development of that. The other thing I'd like to mention on this car is that it also has an eLSD. And I think that's part of the reason why it's actually pretty good to drive. Most of the M-Lite cars don't come with a diff, and you have to spec it by buying an M Performance one after you've bought the car. So let's take this car for a drive and see what it's like.
So
So I haven't driven this Z4 M40i properly yet, so let's get it out on the road and see what it's like. I've got it in sport mode and I've set the steering in sport, but I've left the dampers in comfort. I found in sport mode they're quite hard, especially on these kind of bumpy roads. But this car does have a ELSD, so it's quite fun around the corners. I found that the Super Sport tyres it comes with, they're not PS4S, but they've got massive amounts of grip. Yeah, I've done this same road with the car in its own sport mode, and the dampers in sport were just too hard to cope with the sort of undulations in the road, but it seems to be a lot happier in comfort. As you guys know, I did drive the Supra. If you haven't seen the video, we'll put a link to it here. And we drove that on the track, and that was in sport mode. I'm really keen to compare them back to back, because I drove that car probably about 3 weeks ago, so it'd be interesting to see what they're like comparatively. They do obviously feel very similar, but I think in this you can feel the fact that it doesn't have a roof. I've always found that when BMW Z3 M Coupe and the Roadster, and obviously the Z4 as well, I could always tell a difference in the way the car drove. The stiffer chassis did drive a hell of a lot better. But we know this engine pretty well. It's the B58 that you find in the M140i. It's got a lot of torque, and it makes peak power at the end of the rev range. And also BMW do underquote these engines, so they make more power than BMW suggest. In Europe, we obviously have the cars with the OPF, so they're not going to make as much power apparently as the cars we have in the USA and everywhere else. But we haven't put this on the dyno yet, and we will do that as part of this video, I guess, when we get back, just to see how much power it's putting out. Obviously the main reason you'd be buying one of these is because it's a Roadster. So let's put the hood down, see how quick it takes. Apparently it's around 15-20 seconds. Yeah, it's pretty quick. The interior is actually very nice in here as well. That virtual dash is a bit different to what I've got in the F90, and the iDrive and screen seems to be a generation up from it as well. As far as non-M cars go, it's actually quite a lot of fun. Maybe because they're not making an M version of it, they've put a bit more effort into this. I won't know how much of me you can hear until I get back and check the mic levels out, but kind of perfect weather for this kind of driving in this countryside. As I said earlier, it's much happier in comfort mode, on the dampers at least anyway. I'll pop it in sport anyway and then have a look at the difference. Yeah, it's very stiff. But that is a good thing about this as well. You can configure all of your own modes, so you can have the steering how you like it, the dampers how you like it, and the engine as well. Sounds great as well. I mean, a B58 engine does sound good, but in this it's got all the cackles and overrun built in. If it was my own car, I'd probably have it a little bit louder, but not much. Normally BMWs are super quiet from the factory, and you have to put an exhaust on them, but this doesn't actually sound too bad at all. It actually sounds really nice. It's got a nice tone. But in terms of the interior, I sat in the Supra first. Obviously it feels very, very similar. I have to say it's a bit of a step up from the previous Z4 in terms of interior, but actually the whole car is a lot better. I didn't really like that car too much at all. Even the N54 version, yeah, the engine was great and you could tune it and it was fast, but just felt like a really soft GT car. This is a bit more focused. sure. Not quite Boxster level yet, but I don't think people buying a Boxster are quite going to be looking at a Z4. I think there's two different types of customers. So my dad has a 981 Boxster S, and I spend a lot of time driving that, so that's one of my favorite cars. Yeah, as it's getting hotter, it's making more overrun noise as well. So you can tell a very big difference in the different steering modes. So in comfort, it feels like the ratio is quite large, so you have to turn the wheel a lot, and it's quite light. In sport, stiffens up, but it feels like it's actually the turning ratio is less. So when you steer, it feels a bit more direct. In terms of just cruising around, you could just stick it in D and just cruise around, or you can use the paddles. It's got the same ZF gearbox that BMW using in a lot of cars, and it works really well. I think that people will be very hard pushed to tell that it's actually a torque converter gearbox rather than a DCT. Downshifts are super quick, so the upshifts, it's really good. So for a car that I wasn't overly fussed about when it was released, it's actually impressed me quite a lot. You have to remember that this car is a stopgap until the Supra comes. We wouldn't have bought it if our Supra was here already. And traditionally, with the Z4 and the Z3, I was never interested in the convertible version or the roadster version. I was always wanting the hardtop version of it because I just felt the driving dynamics were much better with a hardtop. Now, I haven't driven the Supra and this back to back, but initially it does feel the same to me. The Supra chassis does feel a lot stiffer, and I think therefore it's slightly sharper, but until we get our Supra, I'm not going to be able to do a direct comparison. So overall, the car is a lot of fun. The B58 engine we're very familiar with. It's very torquey, it's got a really good power band, and it does like to rev out and kind of make peak power at the end of the rev range. It's mounted to the ZF gearbox, which is also fantastic, and obviously the power goes through the rear ELSD, and that's also a lot of fun. So overall, I think I've been really impressed with the car. It's probably the most fun non-M car that I've actually driven, or that I can remember driving, and I think if they made an M version of this, it'd be absolutely fantastic. I did want to dyno the car and V-box it, but I'm traveling now for 2 weeks, so I'm not going to get time to do that, so you'll have to wait till I get back. I am off traveling for work, so I'm going to go see my friends I&D in Chicago and take a closer look at their M2s. So I'll be vlogging that on my GoPro, and I'll be sending the footage back to Matt so he can edit that, so look out for those. After that, I'm going to LA and hopefully drop off to the guys at Hoonigan and CSF. And after that, I'm going to Korea to see our friend Studi race in the Blank Pan Asia GT series. And also go out to see our distributors Basic Performance in South Korea. So got a really busy 2 weeks of traveling. I'll try and vlog all of it. So until then, I'll see you later. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you'd like to watch more of this project, you can do so over here. If you'd like to watch what YouTube suggests you might like from our other videos, you can watch that over here. If you like this video, please click on the thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. If you guys have any questions, please drop them in the comment section and we'll do our best to answer them for you.